US Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent was asked whether his sanctions on Iran and Russia had been successful, and his answer was pretty shocking.
What do you want to say about sanctions, something else you've been working on, of course? What are you planning there in terms of Iran and the impact there? Do sanctions actually work? And the same question with regard to 500% secondary sanctions or tariffs on countries who purchase energy products from Russia.
Okay, so two things there. There are Treasury sanctions. And if you look at a speech that I gave at the Economic Club of New York last March, I said that I believe the Iranian currency was on the verge of collapse, that if I were an Iranian citizen, I would take my money out. President Trump ordered Treasury and our OFAC division, Office of Foreign Asset Control, to put maximum pressure on Iran, and it's worked. Because in December, their economy collapsed. We saw a major bank go under. The central bank has started to print money. There is a dollar shortage. They are not able to get imports. And this is why the people took to the street. So this is economic statecraft. No shots fired. And things are moving in a very positive way here.
A very positive way. I mean, we're talking in the previous section sort of about Mark Carney saying the rules-based order was always a bit of a sham, and that the Western powers went along with it because they were provided some public goods. It worked out for them, basically. But I mean, this is a really classic example of how there isn't really a rules-based order, because that's Scott Bessent saying, we, the United States, decided to destroy the Iranian economy, and we did it. Yay. Brilliant. We didn't even have to fire a shot. And obviously those sanctions weren't, I mean, there have been some UN sanctions imposed on Iran, but the sanctions which destroyed the economy, there was no international agreement about them. That was the whim of one country, the United States, who decided we have the financial power to completely wreck this country, which is quite similar to invading a country, really. And brilliant, it worked because we've collapsed their currency and now their people are rebelling to some degree against their government.
No shots were fired. Well, actually, there were quite a few shots fired if you were looking at Iran in the last couple of weeks. At least 2,000 people have been killed, according to Reuters. I think that's, as a source, that's second to none. I think it's probably a lot more than that. Large numbers of state forces have been killed, besieged, police, etc. I'm not suggesting that's important because they should have your sympathy. I'm suggesting that's important because it generally happens in the early stages of a civil war, right? If you're killing hundreds of police officers, members of the army, the besieged, which are paramilitary in the country, that generally isn't what happens with protests. There's organized violence, which, like I say, is a precursor to civil war. So shots are being fired, and that's an outgrowth of the sanctions. The sanctions have been absolutely about destroying the Iranian economy. Interestingly enough, everybody's talking about Trump, everybody's bashing Obama. The sanctions get hardcore under Obama, and Congress backs them. The president isn't so sure. The sanctions against the Iranian central bank are in 2012. And that's when the screw is really turning. And then you have the secondary sanctions, so anybody dealing with an Iranian firm also gets sanctioned. So all of a sudden, you have a small Swiss or Austrian bank has an account. This happened, by the way. Iran was taking bids from companies that wanted to build nuclear power stations in Iran. They said, if you wish to bid, you need to pay a bond of 50,000 euros, I think it was. The details were an Austrian bank. The Americans found out what this bank was. They said, if you don't stop this, we will sanction you. That bank would become insolvent. They would be destroyed fundamentally. And so, of course, they stopped working with the Iranians. So it's a complete cutting off. It's a complete severing of Iran from the rest of the global economy. It will destroy Iran. It is destroying Iran. So people are saying, oh, the Khamenei and the IRI, the Islamic Republic can hang on. Militarily, they can, right? The IRGC is 100,000 plus people in the country, highly organized, ideologically very aligned. I don't really understand how you can survive these kinds of sanctions long term. They will just turn the country into Afghanistan. They will just, drive people into misery and utter poverty. And of course, there will then be a political response to that. So this idea that it's fine, it's not so bad, it doesn't kill people. And I speak about this with personal experience. My aunt had cancer in Iran. She couldn't access cancer treatment because of sanctions, good cancer treatment. She could get it privately, but of course that requires money. She has £15,000 worth of savings. Guess where? HSBC. Can she get those savings? No. Right? So wealthy, powerful people in Iran can still get good services. The middle class can't. The working class certainly can't. And sanctions punish them most of all. So this idea that it's effective, it's working, I don't agree. I think sanctions in the short to medium term empowered the regime because it disintegrated the one thing that could offer a domestic political alternative, the Iranian middle class. That's been destroyed now. So I do not agree that this is a good way to go. And celebrating the destruction of a country's economy and saying it's a positive thing, I think is a disgrace, frankly. Also, Carney was talking about the weaponization of the global economy. This is exactly what he's talking about. And people like Canada, the UK were fine with it as long as it was the brown people over there. The minute it's about other G7 economies, don't you dare, let's make the speech of a lifetime at Davos. So interesting counterweight to the main story of tonight, which is Carney. Both Bessent and Carney talking in very different ways about the weapon of mass destruction par excellence, which for the United States is a weaponized global economy.